In this video, we're going to focus on how we can use fetch to connect to a JSON file and then update the chart with it. So as you can see here, and if I click on update, we get these weird labels here. You see everything's being updated, but the data doesn't come from a database or somewhere else. No, it comes from a JSON file here. So if you can see here, we have this JSON file, and you can see here all these weird labels that are matching here. So let's start to explore how we can connect this and implement this in Chart.js. In this video, we're going to focus on how to fetch and dynamically update JSON data in Chart.js. And this is quite useful because with this you can do a lot more with Chart.js and far more with a JSON file. So this question came indirectly from one of my other videos about how to create a matrix chart with Chart.js matrix plugin, which is a quite interesting topic as well, which is, as you can see here. However, this question came from here indirectly from Jonel Espejo, and this is basically what he says. Can you create a tutorial for more dynamic charts like using Ajax, PHP, and MySQL? Well, I have a video, as you can see here, my response, I have a video about how to use a database and connect your database with Chart.js. And now what we're going to do is we're going to use also like fetch. So the focus here will be on fetch, which is a very close to Ajax, except it is far more concise in writing, which is far more appealing and better. So let's start and explore how to do this right now. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get the default code. Just go to chartjs3.com, getting started, and then in here we're going to copy this chunk of code here. So you select all of this, and if you want to understand what this code does, please check out this video here. It covers it all. Paste this in here, and once you paste it in here, cut out this, and then, or at least for me, that's not for you, but for me, I will just cut that out. Move it in there, save this, and change this. Alright, so now we have our wonderful bar chart here. What I want to do next is basically work with our JSON file. Right now we have a blank JSON file, and I did it on purpose. We're going to create our own version because this is the best exercise to understand JSON right away. So what we're going to do here is just to make a very simple JSON file that eventually when we have a button here will update the labels here and the data here above. So first of all we have to make one. So how do we make one? Well, we have here a file. It's called financialreport.json. And just a quick note, I'm using here my local host, so I expect you to have a local host, local server, or you are working on your website. If you're working on your website online, that's fine as well on your hosting. So it must be like that, or else you cannot use Ajax to connect data from other files. It's just not possible. You need to have this. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to create one. To start with, curly braces. And once we have this, I'll make it very simple. We're going to start and we say here financial report, make sure that this is a string, very important, colon, and then we say here we're going to make a bracket, and in this bracket here basically the bracket will indicate that this is an array. It consists of more values, and we'll break it down into very straightforward values. We have here the month, and we could have maybe profit, sales, and revenue, or profit, revenue, and cost. That will make more sense, of course. So what we're going to do in here, curly braces, and then in here we will say here month first. Make sure, of course, that this is a string. That's right, it gives a notification. And then here, this is double quotations always, by the way, no single quotations. This is not allowed. We say here January, comma. Then we can say here cost, and then same here, double quotations, cost. And now, because this is a number or an integer, we can put in here a specific value. So 30, no string needed. Next, we have here the profit, and the profit, same story here. Let's make this 60, comma. And then we have here revenue. Oh, let's make sure that this is good, revenue. And this here, it is 90, comma. Oh, sorry, no comma here. Very important here. JSON is very strict. The last value here, no comma, or else you get an error in your extracting the data from the JSON. Why this is, I don't know. Very important, or at least they're very strict. JavaScript is very tolerant that if you make an extra comma here, they would accept that, but JSON is not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this 6 more times. So I'm going to put a comma here, and later on I'm going to remove the comma at the very end. So we're going to paste. That's, oh, sorry, here, and then we have this. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Remove the comma here, and then when we say here, this will be July, June, May, April, March, and Feb for February. All right. Here we're going to add some extra values. So I'll say here, this is 90 and this is 120. I'll say this one is 120 and this is 150. Let me say here, this is 150 and this is 180. And this is 180 and this is 210. 210 and 240. And then 240 and finally 270. All right. Save this now, and now we are done here. We have this wonderful JSON file. So now we're done here, and what we're going to do here is the next part is basically creating the JSON. So what we need, or not even the JSON, we already created the JSON, but we're going to create the fetch block. So the fetch block here is far more easier compared to writing it in Ajax. So let's start and explore that. But to do this, this is very important. We need to have the Ajax, or sorry, the fetch block must be on top here. So what we're going to say here, fetch block, and the reason why is it needs to load first before anything else. And then we say async for asynchronous, because it is basically Ajax, and Ajax stands for asynchronous, meaning it will load independently of the other items. So then here we say function, and then we can give it here a function name. In this case, we could just say fetch data or fetch JSON. Let's say fetch JSON just for the sake of it. This is our JSON file. And then in here, we're going to start working on the code. So first of all, the question is, where do we need to get the code? So we need to get the URL of the JSON file, which is the financial report. I have them in the same folder. If you have them in a different folder, you have to link it to that. So because it's in the same folder, I'm just going to copy this and then just correct the ending of it. So we say here constant URL equal. So where is the link stored? Paste in here wherever your link is stored, and then of course here I'm going to rename this to the official name of financial report.json. So I say financial report.json. Make sure you spell this correctly. If not, you get an error and you don't know where exactly the error is. This is personal experience for myself, that you will spend a lot of time searching, but it was just a misspelled file. This can happen. All right. So once you have this, we have the connection now, or basically we're referring to where we want to connect. But now what we need to do is we need to activate or link the connection. So we say here constant response, and this constant response is just a variable name that we name. You could give it anything you want. But then we say here await, and then we say here fetch, and then we say what are we going to fetch? We're going to fetch or grab this URL or where the data is stored. That's basically what's going to happen. And we can call the response because it is a response. So what will happen here is basically the following. Here loads or waits or waiting to get or to complete the request. And what this really means is this. If you have seen Ajax, with Ajax we use XML HTTP request, and then basically you get a response. It says there response 4, and then also a status of what we will call the 200 status. So basically here it does without needing us to retype that code, because it just does it under the hood, which is absolutely phenomenal. And if you're wondering what does this really mean, this means here it's completed, and status 200, you're probably familiar with 404 error or 404 error or the 500 error for database. Well, 200 means perfect connection. So that's it. So now we have this. What we can do now is the console log. So once everything is working here, we expect it to work, or we're waiting for the response. And once it's done with the response, we can just basically show our data. What we can do here, I guess we should do this first, a const. And this const will be called data points. And this data points is equal to the following. Await response dot JSON file, or basically JSON variables. JSON, make sure you spell it correctly. So we await for the response, and it should be in a JSON variable. All right, make it also readable for us in JavaScript. So then what we have here is we can just grab this one, put it in here. And if we save this, we would be almost done. But what we need to do here first is, because this function must be triggered. This function is not yet triggered anything. So what we need to do here is put a button. We're going to add up a button here, and then it will start to trigger that specific function. So we say here, button, there. Then we say on click. Then we say equal. Equal, we can just grab this one, we put it in there. Fetch JSON, maybe we should give this a better name. We say here update. So if I save this now and refresh, press update, open up the developer tab, you can see here we get an object, we get all of this information. You see all of the information here works nicely, beautiful. So what we can do as well, of course, is check if this all works if we update this. Or sorry, if we change the value. So let's say we would do here 1, 2, 3, save that, refresh, press on this, and then you will see here the updated value. If you don't see the updated value, don't worry about it, because what happens is Google Chrome tend to cache it. If you're in Google Chrome, it tend to cache it. So there's two options. I'm going to show you both ways. First of all, we're going to do the hard reload. This works sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't work. So if we do this here and we click on this, let's see. Alright, so this works nicely. Sometimes, even if you do this, it will not work. So if it doesn't work, I'm going to show you a trick, but I only recommend to do this if you don't see the response, and even if you do a hard reload. I tend to not do this one. I like to do a hard reload myself, because if not, you will lose all of the other data if ever you have something important. But what you can do here is the following. Go to settings. Make sure you open up this console log. Go to settings here. And then in the settings, you do this. I don't recommend it to do it unless you only have, if you don't see the response even on hard reset or hard reload. You can see here on network, it says disable cache while DevTools is open. If I do this, and close this now, and now if I refresh, so let me change this again. I put this on 111, save that, refresh. What happens is it loads very slow now. And this is the reason why I don't recommend you to do it, because it slows down your development process. Click on this here, and then you will see it will work here immediately. We put in 111 without doing the right click here of hard reload. However, this slows down because every time you reload, it has to reload everything. So don't do this unless you really experience the error. So this is something that I only use if I notice it doesn't, or somehow it keeps on caching while I don't want it to be cached to validate if my data works. Alright, so to uncheck it, you go back here, look for network, and in network disable cache. Very important as an extra tip. Alright, so now we have this here, we can just reload this and everything works fine. There we are. So we have this here. So what I want to do now is the following. I'm going to undo this, save that, go back here. Now we have this here, but what I want to do, of course, is this. The moment I click on update, I don't want to see it here. I want to extract these values, get the ones that are necessary, in this case the month, and put all the items in here. So how are we going to do that? Well, we need to continue on with our function here. So let's start and work on the next part, which is the following. So we're going in here, and then we're going to say the following. We're going to say fetch JSON, which is basically this function. So we continue on with this function. Say, all right, we're going to continue on with this function, and then we say dot then. And this then here, we'll say what are we going to do? We're going to grab the data points, and then we're going to use the fat arrow function here, and then we have this, put in here item. Let's make this sure that this is here indented. And then in here we're going to grab the labels, because what we want to do is we want to loop through the array, but only grab this specific value here. So we say here the following. Let's see. We'll make here constant. We say here the month. And then the month equals what exactly? Well, pay attention here. This is very useful. So because we are in the data point, but the data point shows everything. And what we really want is not the data point. We want to go into the financial report. In the financial report, we want to grab the month. All right. So we say here data points dot financial report, because that's one of the values in here, and then we say here dot map, and the map here will loop through every array value we have in here, which can be very useful in this case. And then we say here function, and this function will say get the index. So basically we're going through this index here, all of these 1 2 3, from 0 up to 6. We'll loop through that one by one, and we say here, so we say index, and then brackets here between, make sure you pay attention, brackets here between, and then here return index dot month. Alright, so and the month here is just from this here. So if you want cost, we can say here return index dot cost. So we could do all of these options here. So once we have this here, what we have to do the next one eventually is to do a console log. So we're going to show this value here, show the value, and what is the value we're going to show? Not this one, no, we're going to show this one, of course, here outside. So we're going to grab this, put it in here, but not exactly here. We want to go out here. All right, so this function here will loop through every specific one. Once that is done, console log the entire constant of month, and you will see now we will have these nice values here. I'm going to save this, refresh. All right, so there's something here, financial reports, financial, let's see, we have the data points, financial report. Can I read financial report? All right, so let's look here. What is the term we have? Did I misspell it? Financial? No. If I save that, let's try again. Number 62. All right, so I'm just going to check quickly what's going on here. All right, I figured out my mistake here. So luckily it's a tiny mistake, but apparently I was not paying attention enough here. All right, so we have this here, the constant here, but the problem was this, because it cannot read here. It says here, cannot read property of financial report of undefined. Well, basically it cannot read this one, and the reason why we didn't put in here a return data points. All right, very important. Make sure you follow along and check this as well if you forgot this as well. So if you save this now, then everything else will work nicely. There you are. So now we get here all of these data here. So you probably figure out now what we can do. So with this, we can now start to update certain values here. So what we're going to do now is the following. So here, let's see. We have this one here. What we can do here is just this, because we grabbed this one already. And then what we want to do here, we have the full month. We're going to say here the following, my chart. So we're going to use the update API, config.data.labels equal what exactly? The month value here. All right. So once we do that, then we say my chart.update and save. Once you do that, refresh. All right. Pay attention here. We have here, oh, we already have them, I guess. It will update instantly, or is it? Should it be like that? Let's double check that, but we have this one here right now. It updates, although I was not expecting to be updated immediately. So what we can do is here, we can just double check here how we can trigger this function the moment it eventually loads. All right, so what was the real issue here is basically this. So this here starts to load immediately, and this is an issue right now because we don't want to load immediately, because this is the reason why if you refresh here, you can see this is starting to, it loads the other one and then it has the asynchronous function that starts in there. And what is maybe nice to see is if you put in here something, you will see here, it should show here nicely. All right. However, I don't want this because there's an issue here because it shows instantly. So what we're going to do here is just simply add up a new function, and this function where we can call update chart. And what it does is basically we will nest this in here. All right. And then what we're going to do here, of course, is we want to make sure that this update chart is matched with this. We can save that now and refresh now. Oh, data is not defined. All right, so let's double check what's going on. Oh, there we are. Of course, I realized that we have a mistake here. It should be in here. All right, so that one was definitely not placed to be, but here. It should be here in the update chart. If I refresh now, everything works nicely. You can see Monday up to Sunday, update. There we are. We have all of this. So let's try it one more time just to be sure. Have something else. Refresh, update. It updates everything here with the new value. So what we could do as well, so let's say you want to get now the profit or the other type of values. How do we do this? Well, we can do it in here. We can just grab all of those items here. We're going to update this specific item as well. So what we need here is, we can copy this, put it in there. There we have it. And then instead of month, we can say here, let's say profit index. What was the item here? The month, the cost, and the profit. All right, so we're going to put in here profit as well. We can console log this, and then we say equal this, and then we say here not data, but we say data sets number 0 dot data equals profit. So if I save this now, refresh, update, we can see here it updates all the month and it updates all the values here nicely. And there we are. So basically here, this is how we can connect our JSON or a JSON file together with our chart.js. So if you are interested in going even deeper, there is still something, of course, that I highly recommend is to check out the database series of Chart.js. I highly recommend you to check out this one. This covers a lot of items as well, where you can combine the JSON together with the database and basically create a far more dynamic chart with Chart.js.